still can't visit these facilities. So first and foremost, I do want to give credit where credit is due. There are endless public servants at the city and state levels that are working 7 days a week, doing whatever they can do to prevent and fight off the second wave. So I want to thank all those people who are putting in the time and working hard. But I do want to recognize that we are all short staffed because our agencies and our public sector have been undermined and cut for the last many years. And this wasn't done overnight. This wasn't done under one administration. This is years, if not decades, of undermining governments and local governments and implementing austerity budgets. So we are not fully prepared to take on these type of challenges. So we've seen it throughout this process from the beginning, whether it's filing for unemployment or getting help. We are punting everything to the private sector, relying on companies like McKinsey and Google to resolve everything that we should be handling. So, and as much as I criticize the governor and the mayor, they're handicapped. They walked into the situation without the full capacity of actually being able to deliver for our constituents. So I think it's about time that we start having these honest conversations without finger pointing or vilifying, one politician or one office, because we all played a role, including my office, including my colleagues. We all played a role in arriving at this juncture in our history as a city, state, and country. So what do we have to do to get better? How do we restore trust in the public sector again so we can empower our government agencies to actually help people? Case in point, our nursing homes. We did our part, in our short period of time to make sure that we can hold these facilities accountable instead of giving them a blanket pass that they can't be sued or they can't be held criminally liable by the residents and workers. We repealed the blanket corporate immunity that was put into place by the executive back in April. So we're doing our part to make sure that we can hold these facilities accountable, that we're in a better place to deal with COVID and this potential second wave. We're also continuing at the local level in districts like mine to service our people who are in desperate need for basic services from governments, and that includes HEAP, which Jiun, my community director, will elaborate on what that program is and what we're doing to accept some of these HEAP cases in our district office.
Okay, our district office is still open for our constituent to apply for the HIP, which is Home Energy Assistance Program. It goes every Wednesday and Thursday. Still, a lot of our constituents in our district call us to make an appointment. So this program will help you to save monthly payments for electronic and the gas and heating and as well. So please call our district office always. We open to receive a call at 718-939-0195 for more details. Thanks.
Thank you, Jiun. And Tony, our chief of staff. So Jiun is in charge of mostly our Korean American constituents. She's fluent in Korean, and we've had a lot of Korean seniors call and make these appointments. Tony is also bilingual in Chinese, so he's been also picking up a lot of the Korean Chinese American constituents in our district office. Tony, what's been some of the top issues that have come to our office in recent months or recent weeks?
Yeah, so I would say many of the issues that we saw in general before the pandemic, they've sort of been exacerbated in these times. Inquiries about government programs like SNAP, housing, applying for affordable housing, and of course unemployment benefits. That was a major dramatic change, I think, during these last few months. We've had many constituents, that have contacted us because of delays in applying for these benefits that they desperately need, because they've lost their job or they've been furloughed, or they're just out of their luck. And unfortunately, it seems like the Department of Labor like many of the other state agencies that Assemblyman Kim mentioned, they've been experiencing a severe backlog, and they haven't been able to really handle this gigantic surge in cases. So we've been doing everything we can to help constituents that contact us about a case where they're waiting for benefits like UI, and to follow up with the right agency. We know many other elected officials that are whose offices are open are trying to do the same. And then aside from that, as Assemblyman Kim was saying, I do help a lot with a lot of our Chinese American community constituent services. Something I've seen is that a lot of our seniors, especially, and new immigrant residents, they used to rely on many community services like nonprofit centers, senior centers, for language translation services, for maybe the everyday meal for lunch, or just for social interaction, and to understand things about the U.S. and New York, and the community and state laws that they otherwise wouldn't know. And they can't go to those places now. So many of them have been coming to us because they really have no one else to turn to. And it might be something that you would think is simple, like a letter from a government agency, a notice, maybe a bill. But for them, it can be, very scary even, or frightening, because they don't have that language access. They have those cultural barriers. And this is something, like, once again, that I said that has worsened for a lot of communities in this pandemic, now that they've been cut off from the social resources that they're used to accessing.
So another way to kind of look at this, Tony, Dan, in June, is when we try to serve our most vulnerable members, whether it be people who just lost jobs and trying to file for unemployment, or people who are hungry that are waiting on food pantry lines, it's becoming even more burdensome and more bureaucratic and harder to connect the right resources to them. Yet, it's still extremely easier to expedite certain things like a rezoning process that's happening in our backyard, where it doesn't seem that cumbersome for them to put together hearings and city council meetings to expedite these type of luxurious mega development rezoning that fundamentally may hurt some of the very constituents in the long run that are currently suffering because of the displacement that it may cause.
Yes, absolutely. So, a lot of these issues with backlog and services that we saw normally, like we said, they've worsened. But again, like the Assemblyman Kim said, it seems like some projects and some cases that involve a lot of perhaps private investment and a lot of attention from certain sectors of our economy do seem to be chugging along, business as usual. And that's unfortunate, because a lot of the social service departments that are dealing with inundated cases and a flood of backlog issues, they're the ones that it seems like could use a lot more of the attention to make sure that they're running smoothly, so that we can help a lot of our working constituents and families stay on their feet during this time.
Yeah, so what Tony and I are talking about is a massive mega development site that's in the smack of our district, 3 million square foot of more luxury condos and hotels that are being proposed to be built in the middle of this pandemic. Whether you agree or disagree, I think it is responsible for us to take a step back in light of what's going on with the pandemic, with how many people who are about to go homeless, to reassess the full scale of the impact of our local economy before we move forward in approving this type of a mega project. But the public has not been engaged, because guess what? Most of our constituents are not online. They don't have access to broadband. They can't even afford the internet. So when you have these type of hearings, you're actually suppressing a good chunk of the public that want to be part of the discussion, that want to have a part. Even before that started, they actually bypassed, the basic assessment phase, where they could have opened themselves up to a public input, to a full environmental review, but they were able to bypass that because the mayor and the city of New York and the Department of Planning deemed that this type of project doesn't need a full-blown environmental review. Really? I mean, this is in the middle of Flushing, next to a hazardous waterfront that hasn't been cleaned up yet, and involves a transportation hub that's at 99.8% capacity, and we have no options of extra schools in the neighborhood, yet there's no environmental impact that you could move forward without a public input. I think there's something fundamentally irresponsible with the process itself, which is why I've been very vocal against this rezoning, and which also leads to my next point. In 20 June, and our team, we published an op-ed in the Daily News about elected officials and community leaders being reduced to as just being resource brokers and not focused on long-term solutions to fix the driving conditions that lead to displacement and homelessness of our most vulnerable members. And that is holding the ultra-rich and the ultra-wealthy billionaire class accountable moving forward. We're here because there's a concentration of wealth in this country, in our state. In a place like New York, we have one of the largest economies, larger than Finland, Russia, almost the same as South Korea, at $1.7 trillion. But we suffer from the worst social and upward mobility in the world among all developed nations. So what does that mean? It means that our people right now, no matter how hard they work as new immigrants or recent graduates, unless you're born on third base, unless you're inheriting the wealth from previous generation, your hard work will not be rewarded. That is what this means. And that is a broken promise for this country, for so many immigrants like our families that have sacrificed to come here, so we and our children can be in a better position to succeed. So when politicians come to you and say, "Oh, our next generation will make sure they get ahead of the previous generation," right now that is a lie. So it's not happening because the data shows that that promise is broken. So unless we fix that, and unless we do our local parts to make sure that our people have equal access to these opportunities, things will not improve. That's why our office has been so vocal on focusing on the Taxing the Rich campaign to break up the concentration of wealth moving forward. So with that, let me turn over to our social media. I know we're streaming live on Facebook and Twitter and all these other sites. So I want to see if there's any questions before we wrap it up. Jiyoon, anything from the Korean community? What's going on in the Korean community? Any interesting news? Any
Yeah,
issues?
a lot of small business owners and also the tenants, they are struggling, because they can't pay the rent. So there's this kind of like big movement, but I don't know if it's a small movement, movement. But they are trying to stand with the tenants and also the small business owner to get win-win situation. So they're struggling, so they need to fight for it. So they do the protest, and a lot of Korean community gather and talk about it, including Assemblyman Kim.
Thank you, Jiyoon.
Yeah.
We have Alice Purdy on Facebook. Thank you for your comment. I see your comment on Facebook. But to Jiyoon's point, There are a lot of small business owners, particularly from our community, at the very beginning of this pandemic. They try to fit in and they try to be a team player by doing the right thing, delivering free food, sourcing PPE, and delivering trucks of them to the governor's office in hopes that if you are playing nice with the governor, that he would take care of us, that he would take care of the small businesses. But these businesses, after 3, 4, or 5 months of and after realizing that no one is coming to bail them out, that they can't afford another second wave, that this is a matter of life and death for some of these families. They're organizing now, and they're expanding their allyship with other groups that already have been protesting on the ground for months, because the money is not getting to our people's pockets. Now we can sit here and say, "Oh, let's wait for the federal government." They've been saying that for months. We've been saying on the ground, we can't afford to wait for the federal government. We've had proposals that we put in that can generate a minimum $50 billion of new revenues for the state of New York. 50 minimum. These proposals are vetted. Academics have looked at it over and over, and those are sound proposals. But it's not easy in the sense that there were people in the political elite class that would have to have some uncomfortable conversations with Amazon, with the mega corporations and all the billionaires that have reaped the benefits of this COVID by making trillions of dollars in profits. But that's what leadership is about. We've been here and we've done it, and we have went to the wealthiest people and held them accountable. When FDR faced the Great Depression, he wanted 100% tax rate on the rich. What does that mean? It wasn't he did not care about actually getting the revenue. He thought that it was immoral for the ultra rich to make any kind of money during a crisis moment in this country. He went into Congress and proposed a confiscatory tax rate to confiscate wealth. They landed on, I think, 90% tax rate, but that's the kind of bold leadership that this country and this state needs right now. We shouldn't be negotiating tax rates with the rich. We should be going in and setting the terms of what we need from them, from the 1%, so the rest of us could have a sustained living moving forward. With that, I don't think we have any more questions, but thank you so much, Tony, and thank you so much, Jean, for all your service. And please call our office if you need anything. We're making appointments. We are very careful about social distancing in the district office. Our building, unfortunately, doesn't have the best circulation of air, so we're doing our best to wear our masks inside and keep our distance. But please call us at 718-939-0195.